What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing back at you again. Today's topic: Canelo Alvarez versus Callum Smith post-fight analysis. Also, Canelo Alvarez don't know why Spence is showing up at his fights. He's not showing up at Spence's fights. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life for riches, huh? That life for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's chop up some boxing today. We got a couple of things to talk about. As I stated in the the topic for today is the post-fight analysis, Canelo versus Callum Smith, and we're also going to talk about why Errol Spence is showing up at Canelo's fights. Okay, he had said that he doesn't know why. Spencer said he doesn't know why Crawford is showing up at his fight. So the question is, why is he showing up at Canelo's fight? So we're going to talk about that as well. But let's get to the Callum Smith Canelo fight and talk about that first. All right, so I saw the fight. It was a great fight for Canelo. For Callum Smith, not so great. From what I saw in that fight, at the end of Callum Smith had a 7-inch height advantage, a 9-inch reach advantage, okay, in that fight. And Canelo basically beat him from pillar to post the whole fight. So we have to really find out what accounts for something like that. How could you have a 9-inch reach advantage, a 7-inch height advantage, and still get battered like you did? So from what I saw, Callum Smith was very tentative in the fight. He was very tentative. He looked like he was intimidated from the very start of the fight. Okay, that's number one. Now supposedly, Callum Smith has the record for amount of jabs thrown in a fight. I think something like 700 jabs or something like that. But in this fight, he threw 44 jabs the whole fight. That's unprecedented. I don't know what to say about that. 44. Canelo threw 88 jabs, so Canelo basically out jabbed Callum Smith, a guy that has the record for throwing jabs, that threw 700 jabs in one fight or something like that. I could be wrong on that quote. I got to double check on that, but he has the record, so it must be a lot of jabs. Okay, so how do you throw 700 jabs in one fight and only 44 in another fight? I'm at a loss as how that can be possible. So maybe somebody else can put in the comment, how is that possible? But at the end of the day, Canelo went in there and did what he had to do. He basically, walked down the bigger guy, out jabbed the guy with the longer reach, okay, and basically beat him from pillar to post, like I said previously. So like I also said, Canelo looked like he intimidated Callum Smith. Looked like he was intimidated from the very first second of the fight. He kept backing up right away. He started backing up right away. As the bigger guy, the taller guy with the longer, and then the next thing, he was fighting low. He kept hunching down to Canelo's side, which I don't understand why that is. When you have a 9-inch reach advantage against someone and a 7-inch height advantage, all you have to do basically is just keep the jab out there, okay? Keep the jab in the opponent's face, and just move side to side as you're moving around the ring. That's it. That's basics, fundamental. The jab is the most important punch in boxing, basically. So if all he had to do with all that reach advantage, we're talking about 9 inches, okay, and a 7-inch height advantage. So it wasn't just that he had just the 9-inch reach and that's it. And him and Canelo was the same size. He also had a 7-inch height advantage and a 9-inch reach advantage. Yet still, he didn't use the jab, which would have been the most effective weapon in a fight against a guy who is 7 inches shorter than you and who you have a 9-inch reach advantage on. So I mean, something is wrong there. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, at the end of the day, this guy he kept coming back after every round and doing the same thing, trying to hunch down and punch it out with Canelo. I mean, couldn't his corner have told him to use the jab? Didn't his corner tell him to use the jab? I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, a baby could have figured out that the jab is the most important weapon in a fight like that, and against a shorter opponent like Canelo who kept coming in on you. I mean, backing up is not going to stop him from coming forward. The only thing that could have stopped him is the jab, because obviously you didn't have the power, it looks like, to really hurt Canelo. And he kept missing a lot of punches because Canelo has great defense, so Canelo was slipping a lot of punches, okay, and just walking it. I mean, he just kept walking in. He just walked him down. How do you walk down a guy with a 7-inch height advantage and a 9-inch reach advantage? I don't know how that's possible, but we saw it with our own eyes. So I mean, Canelo went in there and did what he had to do, okay, and but from the perspective of Callum Smith, who was a very disappointing performance, I can see, I mean, disappointing is putting it nicely, and I mean, he doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, he doesn't deserve to be a champion as far as I can see. Okay, I mean, Canelo, he needs to he needed to give up that belt, and so it's good that someone at least now has the belt that can defend it, because this guy Callum Smith, I mean, I don't want to denigrate him or anything like that, but I mean, at the end of the day, we have to speak facts, and I mean, the performance was terrible. Okay, you had every advantage in the book, and you used none of them. You didn't use a height advantage. You didn't use a reach advantage. The two biggest advantages that you have, you didn't use them at all. So I mean, I'm at a loss, to explain, how the fight progressed the way it did. I mean, maybe somebody can, put in the comment what they think, because I'm at a loss for words, after watching that fight. I mean, I just don't get it. Okay, I mean, better minds than mine are gonna have to explain to me how such a thing is possible. Okay, and I mean, during the fight, I heard Andrade, because he was doing color commentary at the fight. Bubu Andrade, Demetrius Andrade, for those that don't know him. He said that Callum Smith didn't come to win, and I mean, I have to agree with him. Okay, because based on what I saw, it didn't look like he came here to win at all. Okay, I mean, he didn't do anything to try and win the fight. I mean, again, I'm going to say it one more time. I already said it 2 times already, but I'm going to have to say it one more time. You have a 9-inch reach advantage and a 7-inch height advantage, and you only threw 44 jabs in the whole fight. How is that possible? How can you say that you came to win when you didn't throw any jabs at all? Okay, basically 44 jabs. How does a guy with a 9-inch reach deficit out jab you by 50%? How is that possible? Canelo threw 88 jabs. Callum Smith threw 44. I mean, then how can you say you came to win the fight if that's what you're doing? So I mean, I'm up to agree with Bubu Andrade. He didn't come here to win at all. Okay, I mean, he came here to lose, and that's exactly what happened. So I mean, I ain't taking that away from Canelo, but this fight, from the perspective of Callum Smith, was a total disaster. I mean, this guy should retire from boxing. Okay. And I mean, I doubt if he'll ever fight again. And if he does fight again, I mean, who would want to watch it? You know what I mean? I mean, I know Canelo is a good, is a great fighter. Okay, uh, but I mean, is it that Canelo is that great that he took the fight out of Callum Smith to the point where he couldn't even throw more than 44 jabs? Is that what we're gonna say? Is that possible? I don't know. I mean, I mean, there's something that's going on here that we don't know about because, again, people 44 jabs in the whole fight with a guy who has the record for throwing jabs, something like 700 jabs in one fight, and in the most important fight of your life, you throw 44 jabs. Now, I did see that, his hand, and I believe it is, yes, it was his left hand. His left hand was looked like he was damaged during the fight because after the fight we saw his left hand had a big lump or some kind of hematoma on his hand, which was huge. And so now that I think about it, maybe that was Canelo's strategy to take away his jab. Okay, I mean and if that was the strategy, it definitely worked because, and if that was the strategy, it was a genius strategy by Canelo because that's what because that's why he didn't throw in much jabs because that left hand got damaged. I heard, and from what I'm hearing, I don't know why I didn't think about it before. From what I heard, the hand got damaged around the second or the third round. Okay, which would be what you would need to do if you was Canelo to disable his left arm so he couldn't throw the jab. So if that was the strategy of Canelo going into the fight, then I'm up to say that it was a genius strategy and it worked to perfection. Okay, so maybe that's what it was. Okay, and so maybe I'm a little harsh. Maybe I'm being a little harsh. Not just me, a lot of other people out there. Maybe we're just being a little harsh with Callum Smith, and maybe it was just that Canelo came in there with a better strategy, a genius strategy, and he disabled his arm in the beginning of the fight so that he couldn't throw the jab that he wanted to throw. Maybe that's why he didn't throw as many jabs as he usually does. I mean, it can't be no other explanation but that, I would think, now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, so maybe that's really what happened, and so yeah, it was a great strategy by Canelo if that's what really was the strategy, because it is obvious that his arm was damaged, his left arm to be exact. And if your arm is, looking at the damage to his arm, I can see why he wouldn't be throwing a lot of jabs because he must have been in severe pain. Yeah, it's like he was basically a one-handed fighter, couldn't throw the jabs. So Canelo went in there and took away his best weapon, okay, in that fight, which was the jab. That's a great strategy if that's what it was, man. I mean, I gotta give it to Canelo if that's the case, okay? Because I mean, from just by I'm just thinking about that while I'm doing this commentary. I never really thought about that before. So yeah, now I see what it could have been, why he didn't use the jab. Because I kept thinking to myself the whole time. Yes, when I watched the fight and even today. Like, why wasn't he throwing more jabs? Why? So now I'm seeing, that could be the case that Canelo just went in there and tried to break that arm in the first part of the fight, and then disable his arm so he couldn't really throw the jabs, because that would have been the most effective tool against Canelo in that fight would have been the jab. So yeah, that could be it. But yeah, so Canelo went in there and did his thing. Okay, again, against a bigger guy with where Canelo was at a disadvantage, in height and in reach, and a guy that's heavier and used to taking harder punches. But I mean, Canelo didn't stop him. I mean, one thing about Beterbiev, I mean, I keep saying Beterbiev, but I mean, Callum Smith was that he was a tough guy. He took a lot of punishment. So who knows what would have happened if he could have been, if his arm was 100% and he could have used it. He might have, done something more. So yeah, But at the end of the day, it was a great fight from the perspective of Canelo. He did his thing as usual. Okay, went in there and performed. Okay, and so now he's now a unified champ at 168. So we're gonna see who he's gonna fight next. Whether it's there's a lot of guys out there. Andrade has been calling him out for a long time. People are talking about Charlo. You got Caleb Plant. Okay, a couple other guys out there. Canelo got a lot of options at 168 pounds. Okay, so even at 160, if he decides he wants to go to 160, which I don't think he's gonna do anytime soon because he wants to. I think he wants to become undisputed at 168. And during the post-fight commentary, he was asked about going up to cruiserweight. He said, "Nah, that's way too much for him. He's not even thinking about going to cruiserweight." So I don't blame him. He's too short. I don't think his frame is. We can't say he's too short. Because there've been guys. Muhammad Quayi, I think, was a cruiserweight. I think he was about Canelo's size. But and even for heavyweights, So yeah. But anyway, great fight by Canelo. He did his thing in there. Callum Smith, it looked like he got to go back to the drawing board. And we'll see what happens with him from here forward. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people noticed that Errol Spence was at this fight. Okay, he showed up there. And there's a graphic, and the graphic you can see him there talking with the interviewer from the Zone. And he basically was talking about fighting Canelo. Now, I've seen, people say that he called out Canelo, but he didn't call Canelo out. He just appeared at the fight, and when he was asked a question about, fighting Terence Crawford, which people are always going to keep asking him. So, because to me, it seemed like he's been ducking Terence Crawford for 3 years now, and he's continued to duck Terence Crawford. And as far as I'm concerned, to be real about it, his out there putting out talking points about fighting Canelo without actually calling out Canelo, okay, because he hasn't called out Canelo, is basically just clout chasing, okay? And I think he's doing that just to avoid people talking about him fighting Crawford, okay? So he's trying to take the pressure off himself from fighting Crawford by going out there and talking about and trying to put out, talking points about, him and Canelo can fight, at 160. So let's take a listen to the clip, what he actually said, and then we can talk about it. Here it is.
Now, I follow you on social media, like a lot of people do, and there was a graphic that was thrown up recently of all the top welterweights, and you commented like, look, what are we doing here? I beat several of the guys on this graphic. Can we be done with everybody else but Terence Crawford? Can we just do Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford?
That could happen. We got to see how it go. But, like I said, I can move up to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez.
Congratulations. Back here, way back, Jeff Zimmerman, Fight News. Did you see Errol Spence tonight at the fight? And what about fighting him back at Cowboy Stadium in Dallas next year?
Sí, lo vi. La verdad que, pues obviamente, agradecido de que estén aquí. Pues ahorita tenemos otras metas, ¿no? Tenemos otras metas a corto plazo, que es ganar los títulos en las 168 libras y pues más adelante veremos.
Yes, I did saw him. I'm very grateful that he was here, but reality is that we have other goals right now. We have the goals of the 168-pound titles.
Okay. So as you can see, Canelo gave Spence a reality check. So what we saw there is, what happens when clout chasing goes wrong. Okay. So Spence goes there and he's trying to make it seem like, he wants to fight Canelo, or you want to keep the Canelo talk going on as opposed to the Errol Spence versus Crawford talk, okay? Now, the question that the interviewer asked him was about Crawford. And you saw what he said. Oh, well, that may happen, it could happen, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And he talked about, you can go ahead and watch the full clip, on that his own channel. He basically talked about, went on to say that, the fight might happen, or it could happen if they sat down, and this, that, and the other, and that, Crawford would have to take a 60-40, a 70-30, or whatever he and his team decide to give Crawford. So he basically dissed Crawford, okay, and put, a damper on that fight happening. Basically putting an obstacle in the way of the fight with Crawford. But here he is at the Canelo fight, talking about he can fight Canelo at 160. But no, he can't fight Canelo at 160 because Canelo, he's not interested in that fight. Okay, Canelo has bigger fish to fry at 168, and that's what he's pursuing. He's pursuing undisputed at 168. He's unifying the titles up there, okay? Which is what Spence is supposed to be doing at 147. But instead we see him, at the Canelo fight, after he had said he doesn't know why Crawford is coming to his fight, okay? But here he is at Canelo's fight. Now, Crawford wants to fight him, okay, at 147 and unify. But he's trying to fight Canelo instead. So, we see it for what it is. People can say what they want to, but it's basically clout chasing. He's just, using Canelo's name to try and get the talk away from him fighting Crawford. And, it's not, in this case, it was a spectacular failure. Made him out there, looking like, looking weird. Okay, so there he is talking about, I can fight Canelo at 160, and Canelo just said, nah, you can't fight me at 160. I got better things to do. The reality. Canelo used those very words, the reality. So he gave him a reality check. Okay, so you can check out my video. I did a video about that specifically, called Canelo give Errol Spence reality check. He's not interested in fighting him at 160 pounds. So you can go to my channel and check it out. And you can also check out another video I got there, which I did that a couple months ago, maybe about a month or so ago, where I said that, Errol Spence was, floating to talk about fighting Canelo in a desperate attempt to avoid fighting Terence Crawford. So, and then, I also did another video called, Errol Spence starting to look like a laughingstock by, clout chasing Canelo and ducking Terence Crawford. And that's what, that's what it's starting to look like. Errol Spence is really tarnishing his brand by making all these attempts, to me, at, throwing the fight with Crawford under the bus, for whatever reason. And, the only reason that we can think of is that, he's afraid to fight Crawford at 147 pounds. What else could it be? I don't like to say fighters are afraid, but at the end of the day, fighters are human too. They're happy, they're sad, they're mad, they get, upset, they get, they feel fear just like anybody else, okay? So, at the end of the day, to me, it looks like Errol Spence doesn't want to have nothing to do with Crawford, and he doesn't want to smoke with Crawford at all, and he's doing everything in his power to throw that fight under the bus and not have that fight happen. Okay, so, what else could the explanation be for the things that he's doing? If he walks like a duck, act like a duck, then it's a duck. Okay, so, sure enough, you have people like these LDBC fanboys out there, like Snitching Fan and Boxing and Blue Blood Sports, talking about Canelo and Errol Spence is the biggest fight in boxing. This, that, and the other. Canelo wants to fight Errol Spence, but as you can see from the video I just played, that's not what's on Canelo's mind right now. He, like I said, he got bigger fish to fry, and he's doing his thing at 168, which is what he's supposed to be doing. Why should he come down to 160 to fight Errol Spence for what? What does he gain by doing that? Okay, so you know, we have this guy, you know, snitching fan and boxing. You know, you guys know his channel. You know, you know, basically, you know, the guy is. I don't know what to say about this guy. I mean, he's something else. I mean, the guy is delusional. So he's been going on a hate-filled rant about Canelo, where, you know, he's dissing Canelo because, you know, Canelo decided that he doesn't want to fight Errol Spence. Okay, he's claiming that Canelo is ducking Errol Spence, which, you know, could be nothing could be further from the truth. Why would Canelo duck Errol Spence for what? I mean, so just because, you know, I mean, look at the logic of these guys. Okay, look at their logic. Errol Spence is at 147 pounds, right? Crawford has been calling out Errol Spence for 3 years, ever since he came to 147 pounds from 140, being undisputed 140 pounds. He cleaned out the 140-pound division, moved up, and he challenged everybody at 147, including Errol Spence, Keith Thurman when Thurman had the belts, you know, Manny Pacquiao, all those guys, you know, all Sean Porter, all those guys ducked him. Okay, now Keith Thurman doesn't have a belt, Porter doesn't have a belt. You know, Danny Garcia doesn't have a belt. The only person that have a belt now is Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence. He's been calling out Errol Spence for 3 years, and Errol Spence has been making excuse after excuse after excuse why the fight shouldn't happen, why it can't happen, why he don't want to fight. Okay, but he's not ducking, right? According to Fan of Boxing, he's not ducking. He's right. If you listen to Fan of Boxing and these LDBC fanboys and PBC fanboys, you know, Errol Spence has valid reasons for not wanting to fight Crawford. But here you have Canelo Alvarez, who's 2 weight classes above Spence, fighting his fights, pursuing unification at the level that he's at. And when, you know, Errol Spence showed up at his fight, and Errol Spence is out there talking about, you know, he can fight Canelo. He didn't call Canelo out at all. He never did. Okay, he just said, he just talk and say, oh well, he can fight Canelo at, you know, 160. And like I said, he's just doing that to avoid the talk about Crawford. But now these guys, these LDBC fanboys are claiming that Canelo is ducking Spence, but Spence is not ducking Crawford, who's at his own weight division. Okay, and in order for Spence to unify or become undisputed at 147, he'd have to fight Crawford. I mean, if you guys remember the old Spence, you know, the one that was Mr. Man Down, Mr. Strap Season. Do you hear him talking about Strap Season anymore? No, because if he talks about Strap Season, he has to talk about the belt that Crawford has, and he has to fight Crawford. But he doesn't want to fight Crawford, and so you don't hear him talk about in the Strap Season anymore. So it is what it is. But you know, so he goes to Canelo fight, which is like not even a week or so after he claimed he didn't know why Crawford was coming to his fights, when everybody in boxing has been demanding the Spence versus Crawford fight for years now. Okay, and yet still they can't get that fight, but he doesn't know why Crawford is coming to his fights. But here he is showing up at Canelo's fight talking about he can fight Canelo at 160 pounds. And when Canelo says, nah, I'm not really interested in that, I got, you know, the reality is I have things to do at 168. All of a sudden, these LDBC fanboys out there talking about he's ducking Spence. I mean, these guys are so predictable, it's not even funny. So, yeah, so that's what's going on right now in boxing. And now, you know, Spence, you know, is on this cloud chasing thing with Canelo, trying to big up his name as well. And, you know, people that knows boxing sees it for what it is. You know, they see it for what it is. I mean, you know, the decaps or the casual fans out there might not understand what's going on, but the people that really know boxing, okay, they know what's going on, okay? And, you know, Spence really needs to stop this nonsense. You know, he needs to, you know, I mean, the fight with Errol Spence, I mean, people are actually demanding that fight. They've been demanding it now for years. They've been demanding this fight for years. Nobody is demanding a fight between Spence and Canelo. No one. The only person talking about that is these delusional fanboys like snitching fan and boxing and Spence himself. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's demanding that. The public is not demanding that. Even some of Spence fans, most of Spence fans are not demanding a fight with Canelo. Okay, what they want to see, what people out there want to see is the fight with Crawford, which could arguably be one of the biggest fights in boxing. But yet still, Spence is doing everything in his power not to make that fight happen. How do you explain something like that? Okay, why would you talk about Canelo when you have a huge fight, biggest money making fight of your career, right in front of your face? Okay, why would you not want to make such a fight? What else could we say the explanation could be for something like that? But that he doesn't want to fight Crawford because he doesn't think he can beat Crawford. What else could it be? So maybe you guys, could explain that to me and let me know what you think that is, because as far as I'm concerned, Spence don't want no smoke with Crawford, and it is what it is, and people can say what they want, but these guys couldn't go on there to rant about and try to trash Canelo, because he doesn't want to fight Spence, claim he's ducking. Which to me, the idea that Canelo is ducking Errol Spence is delusional to the extreme. I mean, you have to be an idiot to believe something like that. Okay. So, I mean, but the idea that Spence is ducking Crawford is not out of the realms of possibility, because we see that Crawford has been calling Spence out for years. Okay. And Spence the fight hasn't come any closer. If anything, the fight look like it's getting further and further away than coming closer, because Spence is doing everything in his power to throw that fight under the bus. Okay. And so it is what it is. But again, oh, by the way, if you look here at this graphic on this video, you see, that Snitching Fan and Boxing filed a copyright strike against my channel. Okay, I mean, maybe it's because I'm calling out some of the nonsense that these guys are talking in the LDBC, fanboys, and so here it is, there it is, he filed a copyright strike against me. So because I was, some video I did about Wilder where I used a little clip from his, his channel. So the snitch filed a copyright strike against my channel. Okay, I mean, these guys are something else, man. What these guys are such phonies. They talk about new media. I mean, it's a joke. But anyway, at least we can see that, he's watching my channel. So maybe, he's definitely watching me. He probably watching me at my channel every day. I mean, I don't have thousands of views like they have, like he has, I just have a couple hundred subscribers, but it looks like he's definitely interested in my channel to the point where he's going to go ahead and file a copyright strike against my channel for using a little clip from his channel. This guy is such a fraud and a fake. He's a snitch. Okay. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so that's about all I have for right now. But tune into my channel, subscribe, because Fan and Boxing is definitely watching my channel, so there must be something there for you to watch. And so you should check my channel out, tune in, check out my videos to see what all the fuss is about. Okay. This is TBE Boxing. That's all I have for right now. I'm out.